So what is going on, guys? I am Amazing. Welcome back to another zombies video on the channel, where today we are going to be talking about Eddie from Dimension 2210 and a few other interesting conversations in Alpha Omega between the Primus and Ultimus crew. So as always, if you enjoyed today's video, a like rating would be appreciated. If you want to, if not, it's totally fine. Thank you guys so much for watching anyway. Make sure you are subscribed, but let's get into it. Here we go. So Eddie is a very interesting character in our zombie storyline because we know he is a younger version of Richtofen. He is one of the children in Dr. Monty's house along with Samantha, Nikolai, Takeo and Dempsey. Of course, at the point of Alpha Omega, it is only Eddie and Samantha. The other children are inside of the summoning key. But he is different to the other children because we don't exactly know where he comes from. Obviously, the child versions of Takeo, Nikolai and Dempsey came from the souls of the Ultimus characters that we killed in Black Ops 3. We saw that happen. We know Samantha was already a child in our storyline, and she arrived to the house from Origins when she was freed from Agatha. However, Eddie, we don't really know too much about. All we learn is from the Canorium, where it says Richtofen collects Eddie's innocent soul from Dimension 2210 and Monty gives him a physical form in the house. That is the only piece of information we have about Eddie's background. But where or what exactly was Dimension 2210 where he came from? Why that specific version of his soul? And also, why have we never seen it? We have for every other child, but Eddie is kind of the odd one out. And this gets me a little bit suspicious. If we take a listen to some of the quotes in Alpha Omega, the crew begin talking about Richtofen, debating whether he's evil or good, but whenever Nikolai mentions Richtofen having to travel to Dimension 2210 to collect the innocent version of Eddie's soul, Nikolai makes it sound like it was a difficult thing for Richtofen to do, and you would think this is strange because Richtofen has killed himself before. He is the least emotional character out of the bunch. He really doesn't care about anyone but himself. The current version he is, we've already seen in Blood of the Dead. The post-Revelations version walked away from the one that sacrificed himself, so it doesn't make sense when Nikolai says, if you really want to see pain in Richtofen's eyes, ask him about Dimension 2210.
I have seen Richtofen's many shades of madness firsthand. You have witnessed likewise, Dempsey.
Only madness I've seen in the dock is the pure damn evil kind. Frankly, if he's still standing at the end of this, I'm gonna be pissed.
Richtofen has already made bigger sacrifices than you realize, Dempsey. Much bigger.
Whatever he sacrificed, it wasn't enough. He should be burning in hell.
If you really want to see pain in Richtofen's eyes, ask him about Dimension 2210. We both know Richtofen, you know, is evil. But do you think he can ever be redeemed?
Redemption is not for me to decide. Only he can choose his path. What of your Richtofen? Do you believe he can ever be redeemed?
I take no pleasure in knowing that he may have already redeemed himself in ways few of us will ever understand. I never before imagined feeling pity for Richtofen, but it is something I can no longer deny.
Pity? For Richtofen? I will believe it when I see it, with my own eyes.
So we can clearly see that Nikolai, who has read the Canorium, he knows what Richtofen did when he went back to Dimension 2210 to collect his innocent soul. And it's clear to see it wasn't good. There is a lot more that happened in that situation that we don't know. When Nikolai, Takeo or Dempsey collected their souls in Derizen, Zetsubou and Gorod Kurovi, yes, okay, it was a hard thing for them to do, at least for some of the characters, but they weren't really over emotional. However, Nikolai's making it seem like what Richtofen had to do in order to collect his soul was a lot harder, and if you want to see pain in his eyes, then ask him about it. Which makes me wonder exactly what went down. What version of himself did he kill? I don't think it would have been an Ultimus Richtofen that he killed, since it means he would have been corrupted and the Canorium says it was an innocent version of the soul. So either it was a Primus Richtofen or maybe it was a child version of him, because we don't exactly know at what point in his life Richtofen would have been innocent. You could say his Primus version is innocent, but he's still got a little bit of craziness to him. So maybe it was in his teens or, 10, 11, 12 years old when he was a child that Richtofen was innocent. So maybe he had to kill a child version of himself. But even if that was the case, I think there's a lot more to this. Maybe when Richtofen did go back to this dimension to collect his innocent soul, he saw a younger version of himself, possibly it brought back memories from his childhood. Again, we don't really know too much about Richtofen's background, his parents, his father, his family, what happened to him when he was a kid. Clearly, Richtofen's not completely right in the head. He is definitely insane. Even his premise version is quite crazy. So it makes you think maybe as a child, something did happen to him that caused him to be the way he is. I don't know, and I definitely hope Treyarch are going to shed more light on this in DLC 4, because another thing I was thinking is, in Alpha Omega, now that Samantha and Eddie have been teleported to Nuketown, we know Samantha says to Eddie, we're going to go to the Great War, and then to Dr. Monty's house to kill him, which is all fine, since we can see Samantha can definitely help out, she has her powers. But what exactly is Eddie going to do? Is he just going to tag along and do nothing? I don't know, or maybe there is a lot more to Eddie than we know. Does he also have powers? To me, that wouldn't quite make sense, because as far as we've seen, he hasn't done anything in order to get them, whereas Samantha was previously corrupted by the Dark Ether. Technically, I thought she shouldn't still have her powers, since when she arrived to the house, Dr. Monty took her away, restored her of her innocence, and then brought her back. So Monty should have taken the corrupted ether out of Samantha. But as we can see in Alpha Omega, she still has her powers that she would have inside of the MPD. So that's strange. I don't know why Samantha still has that. Maybe her seeing her father killed has brought them back, or maybe Dr. Monty messed up and didn't do it right. I don't know. But it does make you wonder if Samantha is going to the house and to the Great War, and she's taking Eddie with her. Well, what is Eddie going to do? He's just a kid, unless there's something about him that we don't know. Also, there are some other interesting quotes which tell us more about Element 115 and memory loss.
I do wonder how cathartic it could have been had you ever made it to Stalingrad.
Stalingrad? I think I have been. I fought traitor Russians with my big armored tank machine.
It's almost like there's some kind of common memory, shared regardless of individual experience. A hive mind.
You sound drunk, Richtofen. How many have had you? I mean, how many have you had?
I'm sorry you are the way you are, Nikolai. I'm sorry he, me, us, I don't know, did all those terrible experiments on you. Answer me a question, my simple samurai friend. What do you really want?
To bring honor to the Emperor and the glorious Empire. Ridiculous question.
Is there not somewhere you really want to go, Takeo? Somewhere peaceful? Perhaps sitting under a beautiful cherry blossom tree?
Cherry blossom? What do you know of grandfather's tree?
I don't think you've ever spoken of your grandfather, Takeo. Was he someone you looked up to?
Looked up to? Yes. Looked down on? Also yes.
Well, I'm sure your grandfather and all your lovely ancestors will look down on you proudly, whatever you may choose to do in life.
We will not speak of this again, Richtofen.
So we can see Richtofen asks Ultimus Dempsey how it would have been if he would have ever made it to Stalingrad. Of course he didn't, because Gorod Karovi hasn't happened since the cycle was broken after Zetsubo no Shima. That means the characters don't need to travel to Gorod Karovi. That never happens, and so the dragons, Nikolai in his mech suit, Peter McCain falling from the sky, none of those events in Gorod or Revelations happen now, and so Ultimus Nikolai hasn't been there. However, we see in this quote, Ultimus Nikolai says, Stalingrad, I think I have been. I fought traitor Russian with my big armoured tank. And then Richtofen says, it's almost like there's some kind of common memory, shared regardless of individual experience, a hive mind. And then again with Ultimus Takeo, Richtofen asks him, what do you really want? Takeo says to bring honour to the glorious Emperor, and then Richtofen asks him, is there not somewhere you really want to go? Perhaps sitting under a beautiful cherry blossom? And then Takeo says, what do you know of my grandfather's tree? And we can see clearly Takeo doesn't want to talk about this. But this is strange because our Ultimus characters mention things in Alpha Omega that they haven't experienced. Nikolai hasn't been to Gorod Karovi, but for some reason in his mind, he can remember that happening even though it didn't happen to him, it was to his premise self. And Richtofen tells us that he thinks this is because there's a common memory, a hive that is shared between the characters, regardless of which version of them played out that event. And this could explain a few quotes that we heard in The Giant and Revelations. If we go all the way back to The Giant, Dempsey said this:
This machine's been everywhere I have. France, Brazil, even the damn moon. Why is that?
So he said the Pack-a-Punch machine has been everywhere he has. France, Brazil, and the moon. Yet, Primus Dempsey, that's the one who was saying this, hasn't been to the moon. This was said in The Giant, which was, you know, after Origins, but it was the Ultimus version of Dempsey that went to the moon, not Primus. He also says he's been to Brazil. As far as we know, he hasn't. France is correct because that was Origins, but just like we see in Alpha Omega, could this have been showing that Dempsey, at that time even though we didn't know it, was sharing this common memory between an alternate version of himself? He hadn't been to the moon, but he thought he had, or for some reason in his mind he could remember going there, even though it was his Ultimus version, not him, because of this hive between all of the characters being connected. It was the same in Revelations when you go to the Shangri-La section with Primus Richtofen and he says, nostalgia. This place really isn't what it used to be. And again, Primus Richtofen's never been to Shangri-La. It was Ultimus Richtofen. So why is he saying nostalgia when he's never been here? Again, could it have been this shared memory that he has with his alternate Ultimus self? For all we know, Ultimus Richtofen could share memories from Primus Richtofen. He could know things that maybe he shouldn't do. And what could kind of explain this a little bit more is an excerpt from the Canorium where it says the fragility of memory. Maxis notes that teleportation and travel between dimensions could have a profound impact on the mind. He fears that the confusion caused by the collision of memories, past, present and future, could lead to the collapse of reality itself. So we can see, Maxis has wrote, that travelling between dimensions could cause collisions of memories. And as soon as our characters caused fractures in our timeline in The Giant and began using rifts to teleport, when they began to do this, memories began to collide and different versions of our characters, whether it's the Ultimus, Primus or whatever other versions there are, they have memories that they never experienced personally, but their other counterparts did. So anyway guys, there we go, that is it for today's video. As always, hopefully you have enjoyed. If you have, you know what to do, drop a like rating, make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest videos on the channel. Thank you for watching, and until next time, goodbye.